the rate restructuring. Unfortunately, the cost that they came up with, that including site development down there, is about $8.5 million. It's more than double what we have calculated for that site. I spent quite a bit of time looking through and seeing if it was just an overblown estimate, which we sometimes do see, and I'm still at about $6.5 million with a reasonable development plan for that and phasing it, which appears, if that price level remains in place. I haven't had a chance to look at it in depth with Carletti yet. I'm going to do that yet this week, but it does appear that we're going to have to look at another option on that to building that full facility, which we would like to build. We've got a couple of ideas that we're pursuing to allow us to still move forward and meet the needs of the solid waste and the operations departments. And we'll report on that as that develops, but it does appear that we're a little bit stuck in the mud as far as developing that existing site. That raises an immediate problem for us because we had intended to take the preload material from the library and use that to preload for the new building. We've decided we still want to keep that material for use, and so we're just going to move it to that site and stockpile it for now, and then we'll develop this as our plans get farther. So anyway, that's where we're at on that at the moment. And the last thing is to report on a request from the audience last meeting about traffic on Longtime Lane at Reed Street. I have added a iWork task to our streets department to put the stop bars in that were suggested there. That the materials is on order and it'll probably be done in the next 2 weeks. So that's all I had.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Mr. Berg?
Yeah, just a couple items tonight. You may have noticed the new signs on the entrance to this building and all of our public parks that say no smoking, no vaping, no marijuana. These signs are required by a new Skagit County code the commissioners adopted in their role as the health Board of Health for the community. So smoking had long been restricted. The City Council restricted smoking in the city's playgrounds a number of years ago, but not in all of the parks. This ordinance would expand that to all of the parks. And then vaping is kind of a new add to that. And of course, marijuana remains, I think it's still a crime to do that in public, isn't it? Yeah, still a criminal offense to do that in public. So I guess the question maybe for council to be thinking about is the vaping piece. As I understand it, we don't have law enforcement authority to enforce that. That becomes a complaint to the county health officer. So, you know, I guess that's a question for council about whether you would want to add vaping to the city's own smoking regulations that would confer police authority to go out and, you know, sanction whatever the council determines on that. I think the smoking is that an infraction, Lynn?
Yeah, we don't deal with it enough to.
Yeah, we'd have to check on exactly what the current penalty scenario is, but so that's out there if you get any questions. I did post a picture of the new sign on our Facebook page, and to date, I think we're up to about 65,000 page reach in their metrics. That may be the most widely shared post so far, and I haven't done the actual math, but my sense is it's about 85% saying, thank you, Sedro-Woolley. This is a good thing. The most recent one was, I wish this was happening in Bellingham. You can't walk down the sidewalk in Bellingham without huffing all sorts of secondhand products. So at least from the Facebook count, it seems to be a fairly popular move that the county made. Secondly, I put on your days and I emailed to you the contract with Valdez Construction. The council has given me authority to sign that, but it's a big contract, and so that's why I keep bringing it back to you, is I just want to make sure that there are no concerns. And frankly, if you were so inclined, it wouldn't bother me at all to have you make a motion to approve the contract. Valdez, as I reported a couple meetings ago, is the low bidder. We've now gone through the process, and they've met their qualifications. We're working through the insurance and certificates, and I'm ready to sign that contract tomorrow morning, get that back to Valdez, along with a notice to proceed that'll kick off their discretionary 90-day period to start the project. They're still talking about starting it in early August and kicking off an 11-month construction window. So I guess I'd happy to answer any questions.
I have one. Under between the owner and the contractor, the Central Library District isn't listed there?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. So under our agreement with the district, once this project's constructed, we, the city, will deed the property from 100% city ownership to joint tenancy with the city and the district in our respective percentages. But for the period of time that we're actually constructing it, it is entirely a city project. So city owns the property, city's spending the money on it and managing the project. So that's why the contract is it really doesn't work to have two entities directly engaged in contracting. Under our agreement with the district, I'm designated as the project manager, the owner rep for the city. City Council's delegated authority to sign, but under both that agreement and the resolution that delegated authority, I'm required to check in with the district and get the district library director's consent that, in fact, this is the right direction. So we are effectively co-managing it, but there's a really clear kind of legal chain of command there that doesn't require a contractor to ask two people, but just one. So that puts that obligation on me.
But money-wise, they're still contributing money to this.
Yeah, so the fundamental deal is unchanged, and so that deal is that the city's contributing our assessed value times their millage rate minus what we pay for debt service for the next 20 years. And in exchange, we get access to the library that they will run at their expense. So that's where that $5 million comes in, is in 2019 dollars, our millage rate, or our assessed value, which is just shy of $1 billion times their millage rate, equates to about
It was about $400.
About $400,000 that we would be required to pay the district this year. We would back out of that debt service payments since we're making those directly. So our total cost for the library over the 20 years will always be our assessed value times their millage rate, which is exactly what every resident in the district pays in their property taxes. So that created that equitable situation and a lack of incentive for any sort of disparity between the city residents and district residents.
Okay, that answers my questions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else?
So everybody's happy with it? No concerns with me signing off and moving forward on this thing? Okay. I think that's all I have for tonight. Oh, yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Mr. Merriman?
All right, I have just a few things to update council on. The first is we've talked a few times about the bond issue for the library, and it is now effectively closed and everything is wrapped up, so we have all of our financing now for the library in place. The goal was to have that all done about 2 months before we actually started construction, and we hit that about right on the nose. So we're really happy to have that one behind us. Other things now that we're moving to, we'll have a few projects going on over the next couple of months. A couple of those may require us to come back and talk with you further about them. One is we're doing some demos on fixed asset software. One of the requirements we have is to have a software application where we track all the different fixed assets around the city. We have a $5,000 bottom limit, so we're not tracking every pencil and pen and things like that. But one of the key things we want to do is safeguard city assets, and there is an auditor requirement that you perform a physical count every 2 years. So we're right on that line. So we're doing some good testing of a couple of programs right now and want to be moving forward with that before August or September of this year. Another project we'll be wrapping up is Microflex is a program we have that allows us to look at all the sales tax that generated in Sedro-Woolley, and it gives us information where we can monitor different types of businesses like home improvement or retail or restaurants, and it gives us a little inside view on how those sectors are changing over time, when the economy changes. So right now, we're trying to wrap up getting the last of our data from the state of Washington to put into that program, and we'll be off and running on that. And we have a couple other fun things. Public records is a big one, making sure that we're saving public records and doing things according to the state retention schedules. And right along with that, it's hard to believe that we're almost going to be starting budget again. It seems like we just wrapped it up. But probably in the next month or so, I'll be putting together step 2. This year for 2019 was step 1 with our budget document and getting some things reformatted. And then what we'll be sending out to the departments to prepare will have the remainder of those changes so we can get this next year's budget fully formatted. The end goal a little bit is it won't be this budget, but potentially next year we'll be making the steps to look at doing biennial budgeting. Instead of doing a budget every year, we'll do a 2-year budget process. And that gives us some advantages. What I tend to like to do is do a 6-year projection on revenues and expenses. And when we talk with council about that and we all feel good about how those projections look, we adopt the first 2 years. And there's a series of check-ins we do during that 2-year period to make sure we're on track. But it expands our vision of our budget beyond 1 year. It kind of gets us looking over the horizon a little bit more. So I think that'll be a good move for us. No word on the state auditors yet. Now that I just said that, they will be calling me tomorrow and setting up their appointment to come in. But I'm anticipating probably the August timeline. We'll probably see them come in and pay us a visit. So we'll be looking forward to that. And the last item I have, about a year ago, we purchased the property right across the street on Murdoch here, right across from the fire station. And we committed income that we were getting from GEMT funds. So those are funds that come into the fire department. It's an enhancement payment for our transports that the fire department does. So we've been tracking those this last year, and as of probably about mid-July, we'll have that property paid off. So that was pretty good. It took us about a year to get there, but that's one less piece of debt we have on our trial balance now. So with that, those are the last of the items that I had to share with you tonight.
All right, thank you. Appreciate the humor. Public records, fun things.
Audit's fun thing.
Councilman? No? Okay, all right. Councilwoman Cornegay?
I actually just wanted to thank Mark for getting on that long time lane so quickly. I'm sure they'll be happy to hear about that. Thank you. And another thing was, so this is the last meeting before Logger Rodeo. I just want to remind everyone to have a lot of fun and enjoy. That's it. I'm sure you'll toot your own horn about yesterday, so... I just want to say that Mayor Johnson did a really nice job yesterday at Opportunity Zones, but I'll let her fill you in on the details.
Thank you. Councilwoman Kinzer?
Nothing tonight.
Councilman DeYoung?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank staff and from code enforcement to the legal system and helping out with a couple of nuisance properties in the ward that neighbors have been talking about, and it looks like we're headed to a resolution on that. That is happily being resolved. Also was getting quite a few contacts from business owners on the Central Business District of parking of construction equipment. Specifically, there was a piece of construction equipment that took up 3 spots, and we don't have any ordinances to prevent such things, but did want to bring that forward as requested. Then Water Supply Joint Legislative Task Force will be meeting on Friday, July 19th at 9 a.m. at the Skagit Station. So again, that's dealing with the Skagit River, and Water Supply Joint Legislative Task Force will be meeting. As was mentioned before about Logger Rodeo, down there at Riverfront Park, the carnival is loading in, is putting things together. Should be an exciting time. Looking forward to a robust recycling program with Logger Rodeo. And with that, have a safe and fun Independence Day.
So, Councilman DeYoung, do you want to give the report right now for the Planning Committee? It doesn't necessarily have to go into new business. You can actually give that report if you like right now.
Sure. As chair of the Council Planning Committee, we were asked to come together by Planning Director, and we were forwarded a packet email a few days ahead of time, of which the committee read. The committee members are Judith Dunley and Chuck Owen. The meeting started at 6 p.m. today upstairs. In attendance were the entire committee, the city attorney manager, and the mayor, with the planning department head joining us a little bit later. The subject was about parking ratios to new residences that could be coming into the central business district area. We were given the hypothetical of 12 units being put above a restaurant downtown, and right now we don't have requirements to put parking in play for those residents, so it would be just the supply that we had. And so it was suggested that we think about that and send that over to the Planning Commission for them to do some of the legwork on that, come up with a resolution for us to consider at a later time. We adjourned at 6:07 p.m. and are there any questions? Seeing none, that's the report.
Right. Thank you, and I thank you for taking the time to look at that. I actually had made the request that it go before you to consider. So, thank you. Councilwoman Dunley.
Nothing, but do keep track of your pets during all the noise.
All right. Good advice. Thank you. Councilwoman Kelly.
I just wanted to pass on a thank you. Monique Brigham came and talked to us at our last meeting about their event down at the Burlington track, and that was for Relay for Life. They had an excellent day, a little over 24 hours anyway. They wanted to thank the mayor and those councilmen that did show up. But it was a drain on many of the volunteers, but they brought in way over what their expectations were. They had been expecting to hit about 65,000, and although final numbers are not complete, they know they brought in more than 80.
Yeah.
So thanks to the fire department, thanks to the police department, and thank you, Mayor Johnson, and the rest of you as well for showing up for Monique and her crew.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, I do have a couple of things. I don't even know if my mic is on. Is my mic on?
Doesn't
sound like it. So last night I did attend the Opportunity Zone presentation. Try saying that fast 3 times. And it was really a great presentation. Sometimes I feel like the Opportunity Zone, it's kind of that nebulous thing. You don't really know what it is. But they had he was a CPA, wasn't he, who came in and gave great explanation as to what it was about. There were 3 mayors that presented. I was one of them, and I had a chance to share what Sedro-Woolley is all about and what we'd like to see happen within our opportunity zones. I've already received a couple of requests for more information in a meeting, so that's great. And we look forward to see where that might take us. So that was a lot of fun. Jermaine was there to support me, and I thank you. That was great. I was glad you were there. So
I was actually planning to go anyways.
Felt like the lone Sedro person there, but Jermaine came. And as John was saying, tomorrow is Joanne Lazaron's retirement. Her luncheon is going to starts at noon down at Riverfront Park. You're all invited to come. Joanne has been with us 30 years, and she has given tirelessly, not only in her job, but also to the community. She's an extraordinary woman. And if you have a chance to come and thank her for what all she's done, I know she's going to stay committed within the community, but to come and thank her, you're more than welcome to do that. I also want to give a thank you to the staff for all that they are preparing. It's the fire department, the police department, streets department, solid waste, getting ready for Lager Rodeo. I know this is an annual event. They have it pretty much down what they need to do. But just for an example, I received the schedule for the Parks Department, and they will be starting at 4 a.m. on 4 a.m. It's at the 27th. Let's see here. They're starting really early. Starting on the 29th, they're going to be downtown at 4 a.m., and they're going to continue to do that right through July 5th. So if you see somebody who works for streets, be sure to thank them. You know, they put in overtime like you wouldn't believe, so that it really makes us look good as a city, and they help provide the kind of safety that that the fire department and the police department doesn't necessarily cover. So anyway, thank you for all that you are doing. And I want to just say have a happy and safe 4th. Keep safe. So it is 7:51, and I am going to open this up for a public hearing. This is for the proposed 6-year Transportation Improvement Program, our TIP, 2020 through 2025. There was a sign-up sheet back there. No one did sign up, but I will open it up if somebody would like to speak.
Mayor Johnson.
Yes.
You skipped public comments, and I happen to know at least we've got one person who's hoping to comment.
Oh, really?
On something
So
other
let's
than
back out of there then. So the time is, what is it? 7:52, and we'll open up for public comment. Is there somebody who'd like to come forward for public comment? Ah, okay. So it is one person.
Yep.
And if you can give your name and address and keep it to 3 minutes, that'd be great.
My name is Tom Pazman. I'm from Bow, Washington. Thank you for allowing me to come and speak. I'm here as I'm a volunteer firefighter in District 5, and I've had a number of years of National Forest Service wildland, and also as a volunteer with our district. And when the dissolution of the Scotts Valley Ambulance Authority and other changes in our fire and life support systems, I had the opportunity to add my skill set and go to EMT. And Chief Springer just talked about that. We just finished that last week. And it's really a tough test, and it's really a tough time and a lot of work, but I'm really proud that we all made it through there, 21 different students. Part of that 10-week, 200-plus hours intense program, my classmates and I shadowed medical professionals, professional paramedics, registered nurses, doctors. Most of the time we were directly involved in the patient's care. Additionally, I and other classmates joined the Sedro-Woolley Fire Department for 3 shifts over 3 days for a total of 36 hours. I'm here tonight to personally thank the city of Sedro-Woolley, its fire department, Chief Klinger, I don't want to miss anybody, Deputy Chief Frank Wagner, Todd Olson, Battalion Chief Gerald Chandler, Captain Carpenter, and everybody else at the fire department. Thank you again for making this job training available to rural volunteer fire responders, first responders outside of your jurisdiction. It really means a lot. There was 4 of us from District 5, and we couldn't have done it without you. So thank you.
Wow, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for volunteering, and kudos to the fire department. Okay, is there anybody else for public comment? I love that that was positive. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. So it is 7:54. I'm going to close public comment, and I will now open it up for public hearing. Again, if there's anybody, nobody signed up, so if anybody would like to come forward, you're welcome to do so. Okay, I see no one, so at 7:55, I'm going to close public hearing, and we'll move into the proposed 6-year Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP 2020 through 2025. Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. Every year, we bring before you the latest update in the Transportation Improvement Program. This is for the period 2020 to 2025. We do that as a requirement of the state. Our TIP is passed. Here we have a public hearing. This is the first reading tonight for that. Then we'll be proposing that you act on that at the next council meeting on July the 10th. After that's done, we're required by the end of July to submit that to our local TIP and to the regional TIP for inclusion ultimately in the state TIP. So this is something you've seen every year. Being in the TIP, the projects, it's required for state and federal funding, including TIB and the funds federal funds we get through the Council of Governments. The projects themselves must be on federally functionally classified streets. That's typically our arterials, state highway work, and that kind of thing that occurs within the city. And as I mentioned, a public hearing is required. We have, in the last few years, added an additional step, and we have gone to the Planning Commission and had a public hearing there, and then they recommend the TIP for adoption by the City Council. We did that on May 21st, and the Planning Commission did recommend that Council adopt the TIP. The 2025 TIP and the expanded 2026 to 2039 TIP are based on the updated project list from the Comprehensive Plan, Chapter 3. So that's kind of the background on it. The primary focus for the TIP this year and last year as well are on a few specific projects, and then the Jones-John Liner Trail Road Corridor project. I've got bullets here on the various things that we're concentrating on. The first one is the Jones-John Liner Trail Road Corridor projects. Themselves, we have 8 projects, as you know, in that we have scheduled in this 6-year TIP. Some of them probably won't occur that soon, but it all depends on how funding comes into play, as it does with all of the TIP projects. And they basically are scheduled from 2022 and on, in this particular TIP, starting with the key project, which is the Jones-John Liner Trail Road, or the Jones-John Liner Burlington Northern Undercrossing project. The second project I've listed there is the John Liner Road Bicycle Pedestrian Improvements Project. I believe I mentioned last time that we had submitted an application to do the shared use path to the Council of Governments. That has been recommended for award to the full board. We expect that'll probably be acted on sometime later in July. And so that particular project we show in this particular TIP for 2020. We may or may not be able to move the project funding that quickly because of the strings on that particular source of funds, but we do have that set of funds available. The SR20 West Lane widening project, which we are designing. As I mentioned, we probably will not construct that until 2020 at this time. The TIP shows it at 2019 right now. That's a late breaking change, as I mentioned earlier. And then the SR20, SR9 Township Intersection Improvements Project, which, as I mentioned earlier, we are advertising for consultants tomorrow. And the final one is the SR20 Cascade Trail West Extension Phase 2A, which we are designing now for construction in 2023. A secondary focus of the TIP is maintaining our existing arterial projects. We do that through the $100,000 a year that we budget out of the Transportation Benefit District. Those funds, we use them for a variety of things, including match for TIP grants that we submit for the arterial projects overlays. And finally, a third focus is on the American Disabilities Act ramps and sidewalks, similar to the project that we're preparing for advertisement in the next couple of weeks. We have $50,000 that we're currently budgeting towards that, and we've gathered those funds together for several years to do this particular project. This is a graphic that just shows the projects that are on state highways. We've completed a couple of the ones that were shown on here in the 2016 comprehensive plan, the 2A and the 2B project that added the trail, the shared use path sidewalk on the north side of Highway 20 from Hodgen to SR9. And the local projects, arterial projects, again, we have completed a couple of those. As you know, we've completed the one, it doesn't show up with the laser, but the Fruitdale project is now complete, and of course the Jameson project is complete. So we've made some fairly good project in the last couple of years on our comprehensive plan. And this is just a combination of those two maps. This is the impact fee eligible projects. We use our impact fees to provide and match funds for those in addition to TBD funds. This is just a graphic you've seen several times before that shows the Jones-John Liner Trail 8 projects. And I don't think I'll spend any time beyond that. This is the graphic that you've seen several times in the last few months that we use for seeking funding at the legislature for those eight projects, and some explanations of that. Changes from the 2019 to 24 TIP to this year's version. The West Lane Widening and Safety Improvements Project was originally scheduled for 2019. That's the way it shows in the TIP. I haven't had a chance to change that, and we'll just leave that in play, but it will not be built until 2020. And then the 2019 Sidewalk and ADA Ramp Project goes off the TIP because we are going to build that this year. And then the continuation of the Jones-John Liner Trail Road Scoping Study. We had 19 projects in the 2019 to 24 TIP. We have 21 projects in the 2020 to 25 version. Okay, significant other changes. The Jones-John Liner Reed to Township Bicycle Improvements Project was changed by 1 year from 2019 to 2020, and as I mentioned, we have funding for that now. May or may not be able to accelerate it for 2020, but we're going to attempt to do that. The other second bullet is the various projects that are in the Jones-John Liner Trail corridor. We've shifted all of the timing on those to meet our current best estimate on funding for those. We don't think that there'll be another opportunity at legislature until 2021, so I've started those projects in the TIP at 2022. The Patrick Street Arterial Extension Project was previously scheduled for 2020, and we've left that. We had an exciting possibility with Eddy Line. We thought that might even happen, but now that's apparently fallen by the wayside. We are looking at trying to find alternative funds for that, because it is important to get that one completed early if we can. That's why we have it early in the sequence. The Jameson Overlay Project, which was not funded in 2019, has been extended to 2020 for next year. And then the West State Street Intersection Improvements Project was rescheduled from 2023 to 2024. We've updated the estimates for the various projects to allow for new engineers' estimates, especially for the Jones and John Liner versions of the corridor, and then also inflation on the various overlay projects. The longer range TIP that's also included in your packet, but which doesn't go to the state, if 2025 to 2038 version to the 2026 to 39 version, we've moved the 2024 projects from last year into the 2019, I should say 2020 to 2025. I apologize for that. We've added a new capital project, and we've added a new overlay project out at the end of the range there. Other revisions, we've adjusted various projects by 1 year to reflect current projections, and the estimates have been updated. And just comparing projects, in the previous version there were 42 projects, and now there's 40 in the new version. That's because we did move up the projects that were scheduled for 2024 into the current TIP. So these are just the detailed charts that you've got. I think that's probably enough time on this, but if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. And again, tonight's first reading, and we'd be asking for your adoption, if you're comfortable with this, at the meeting on July 10th.
Mark, I just had one question.
Yes, ma'am.
The chip seal, is that being done on streets that don't have sidewalks?
Well, it's being done on...
because that chip stuff is extremely hard to walk on.
Yeah.
Especially if you're 4-footed and small.
Yeah. Well, it's being done on most of the projects that, if you're driving around town right now, that we put a kind of a blade patch on, those are going to be chip sealed. These are typically streets that we have chip sealed in the past, so there's really no change on that for the most part. But, you know, in our effort to preserve these roads and keep them operational, that's the way we've chosen to do a lot of these streets. So I don't know that too many of them under this particular scenario have sidewalks, at least attached sidewalks. I mean, a lot of the streets like Reed and others do have separated sidewalks on them. I don't know if I answered your question, but
yeah.
Okay.
I was just looking at it today and going, I guess we're crossing this road off.
Yeah.
I have a question, actually. I probably missed it, and I know that we talked about a bike path on 20 along, like, right? Like, but what about John Liner? Is that going to be included next to the sidewalks? Or is there also going to be...
Yes, now the project that I mentioned, we are hoping to build in 2020 on John Liner Road. That is exactly what that is. That's the shared use path that which would go from Reed Street to Highway 9 Township. So the reason we have that project separate from the corridor project is because there are a lot of kids that use that route to get to the schools, and you walk that way too, you know that, and there's lighting issues as well. We want to get that one in place before that undercrossing is opened up and the traffic increases there. And so I think it's important to move that part of it forward and just be ready for it. It is kind of doubled up in the corridor project request we made to legislature. We included that path as a part of the John Liner improvements. The bigger picture includes adding sidewalks on both sides, and then an upgrade of the roadway with drainage and curbs and gutters and all of the rest of that. But just planning purposes, we feel it's important to have a path on that road before we open that undercrossing up. So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mark, some questions on Project C7, which I'm going to focus on C7B and C76, which is the intersection of Jamison Street and Railroad Avenue. As you know, many of the local neighbors there have concerns about that intersection, and I was wondering if you could talk through what the future of that intersection of Jamison and Railroad will look like. Thank you.
Well, it's kind of unknown right now. The thing that's been developing, as you've seen over the years that I've been here at least, is roundabouts are an often used thing for intersections like that. That would be a good location for a roundabout similar to what we built up at the Northern States entrance. Something that is drivable for the bigger rigs, but doesn't take as much space as the big ones like we have at Cook and Ferry and Cook and SR9. SR20. So that's one option there, probably the best option for that one, really. And it's quite a ways out in the tip, as you probably saw looking there. It's kind of for illustrative purposes right now, but we do recognize that with the traffic volumes that are continuing to increase on Jamison, that's going to be an important project at some time.
I love that term illustrative versus aspirational.
Yeah.
but it is something that I hear about frequently, especially with the change of speed heading east from Jameson to Railroad. And it's lovely work that was done, outstanding work done on Railroad Avenue. And people like to use that smooth road and go a little faster. So I'm glad it's on the project list. I'm glad that we're looking at some engineering weaved in with some enforcement activities that have been happening out there, and maybe we can look forward to some maybe some holistic education throughout the city of the importance of why we have those speed limits, and looking out for vulnerable users that would be walkers, pedestrians, and cyclists and others. So good-looking projects, and I look forward to supporting it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions? All right, like Mark said, this is a first read, so we'll readdress it. We'll revisit it, actually, at the next meeting, July 10th. Moving on to unfinished business, we have the weight limits on the city streets.
I've got nothing to add to this from the last meeting. There are no changes, so unless there are questions, this ordinance should be ready for adoption tonight.
Okay. So the motion is to adopt, this would be Ordinance 1929-19, an ordinance amending Chapter 10.20 of the Sedro-Woolley Municipal Code and delegating authority to the Public Works Director to establish weight limits. Is there any conversation, questions? Do I have a motion?
I actually have a question. Sorry.
Okay, good. No.
I was just curious what it was like before compared to what's going to be like. You know, what's so, I mean, I know it's outdated, but, you know.
That's the main thing. There was some ability to deal with weather-related things in the old ordinance. This just cleans it up and brings it in compliance with current state law, and gives us some better tools to deal with the things like are happening at Rhodes Road. We have one other street that we've had some complaints. I haven't had the time to do the research on it yet, but I understand North Ball Street has some larger rigs using that to bypass the SR9 John Leinard McGardle intersection. So kind of the same issue as roads, but I'm not as certain yet on that, but that gives us that tool to look at that intersection as well.
Mm-hmm. And then for clarity, we're looking at basically the 53-foot, 48-foot trailer semis. Those wouldn't. That's what we're looking at, is keeping those off that road, unless there are exceptions in the state law about that, especially if they're doing delivery. Yeah. So it won't get them off exclusively if they have purpose there. And also this limits it to about the size of a 24-foot box truck.
That's correct. It's called an SU vehicle service unit, and school bus size, the truck and big panel in the back, those will all fall under the...
Okay. Just trying to get some real-life examples to the number. Thanks so much, Mark.
You're welcome.
Wayne, were you asking what the code currently reads for 1020-050 that's being repealed and replaced?
I wasn't asking for exact specifics, but now I'm curious.
Well, so 1020-050 is the 1973 penalty provision, and it's just a single sentence that reads, any person who violates any regulation of the superintendent of public works made pursuant to this chapter is guilty of a misdemeanor, blah, blah, blah. And so, you can see in the proposal we've realigned the misdemeanor offense into an infraction, more consistent with the nature of the traffic violation.
Yeah, that's very bland. Thank you.
All right. Any more questions? Yes, Paula.
I just love to make you look up from your drawings. But anyway, do we have the ability to enforce these rules, and does this fall on our code enforcement officer?
You probably need to speak into the mic. You're hard to hear. But are you talking about weight limits?
I'm just asking, do we have the ability to enforce these rules, and does that fall under our code enforcement officer?
Really, not a lot of that kind of stuff falls on the code enforcement officer. If we're looking at vehicles and roads and all that, we actually have Officer Eddie, who's trained in that and has mobile scales and all that, if we get to that point. But code enforcement, she's got her hands full with a lot of other stuff, and that typically wouldn't be, if any road stuff goes code enforcement, it's more parking issues.
Okay, thank you.
I would mention, though, it's fairly obvious the difference in the truck sizes, as Councilmember DeYoung talked about earlier. And commercial drivers don't want to get a ticket for this kind of violation, and this will greatly slow down the people that are shortcutting that way. That would be my take on it.
So do we then just post a sign at our...
And I should mention, too, most of the road is actually county. I'm sure we would use the good offices of Officer Eddie to make this on ours, but we really have jurisdiction only over the north portion down roughly to our Hauser playfields, and then the very last piece at the roundabout on the south end. But we're going to post the signs because that was our part of the deal when we did the study, or the county did the study in coordination with the city on that. So.
Okay, any more questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the weight limits as specified in this ordinance number
1929.
1929-19.
Yes.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilwoman Kelly, seconded by Councilwoman Kinzer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I know that we did the planning committee, but that was the committee report. I didn't know if you wanted to bring that to the council of the whole as a motion to go before the commission. I didn't know what the protocol you wanted to follow.
Actually, I think you as a committee have the protocol to do that. You make the report to the council, and then you make the decision as to what you want to do. You did ask if there were any objections. There were none.
Okay, so it'll go before the planning commission this month then.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. That'll be up to John. John, is that right? Is that what you'll do?
I saw Aaron jump at that mic.
Well, I guess I would just say under our governance manual, the council committees make recommendations to the council. So there's no final decision making at the committee level, or we need to turn those into OPMA compliant meetings. So it could be a consensus of the council based upon the report.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Thank you. So we should probably...
Okay, is there a motion? Did you want to make the motion?
Thank you. Yes, I moved the recommendation of the City Council's Planning Committee, which was unanimous, to direct the Planning Commission to consider the issue of parking related to new residentials in the Central Business District.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion by Councilman DeYoung regarding the parking in Central District, moving to the Planning Commission to make decision, and seconded by Councilwoman Dunlea. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So if there is no objection, we move to adjournment. We are adjourned.